Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special recording with my friend, the managing director of Meine Markenmode, which probably for many of you don't say anything unless you live in Germany. It's a marketplace. Timo is a special friend of mine. We've been friends for a while and always have very inspiring discussions together. And I was bold, and I guess Timo was bold to actually say yes to this and come on this setting with me to answer some of the questions that I had about setting priorities. And I think generally we know that setting priorities is not very easy and requires a lot of management skills, but also personal skills. And that's why I thought Timo is exactly in his role and in his private life having kids, the right caliber of person, also caliber, very big caliber of person to answer some of this. So Timo, thank you very much for coming on. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Matteo. Lovely introduction. As we said in the pre-talk, always fun to talk about things, small things, big ideas, small ideas, and share some of our thoughts. So delighted. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, I'm honored because I know we met, I think, a few years ago on a conference, and you struck me as a person who is very switched on, as I call somebody that really loves people and also always is humble about asking for help or getting new insights and ideas, and that is not common. At least I meet a lot of people in my line of work, and I know you as well. But what do you think about that? About being open-minded, and did you were you born like that, or was it something that you kind of learned as with your career?
I think it was a developmental process. As a kid, I was probably raised more with a fixed mindset. A lot of things were going quite easily for me, and immediately you get a stamp of, yeah, he's I don't know, he's smart, or he can read well, or he's athletic or whatever. And I think it's then it quickly becomes a little bit of, you have to prove yourself and you want to not lose this positive attribute, versus being open to mistakes, learning, trying to grow. So a lot of my ambition was driven by trying to prove that I am the person that people thought maybe thought I was.
Mm,
Um, and I think a lot of times I didn't think that myself. So I think the humble part was definitely instilled into me with my mother milk. My whole family is very humble, hardworking, from former Eastern Germany, now Poland, fleeing in World War II, living a really under very hard conditions, as many people did at the time.
mm,
And out of that developed a lot of work ethic, a very big humbleness of making yourself, just having to work hard and trying to achieve things. So I think by having that as a fundament, I built on that and learned, okay, you can really develop yourself, not necessarily only your skill set, but also your attitude, your values, the way just you see life, you approach life. And ultimately it ended up in being, okay, how can I, where do I want to go, and how can I change almost everything if I want to.
mm, mm. I love the intro, and thanks as well a little bit enlightening our audience about who you are, because I always find it fascinating. I have also some Eastern European heritage, or probably a little bit more than you,
Oh,
but that's something that I've been carrying, and I think many people carry with them where they come from, and often forget to ask themselves, can I use this to my advantage? So I really like that a lot of those topics that we will be covering today, you already kind of hinted at about values and your parents being hardworking as well, and kind of humble. I always, and that's exactly how I know you since we met, being hardworking, being switched on, but at the same time being able to balance a little bit the fun part of it. And
yeah.
I remember met also your team once upon a time, and that was really nice. The atmosphere that was in a team, and so I really enjoyed it. So let me just ask you this a little bit, because I'm curious, and that's probably where we can a little bit jump into today's topic. The role of values, and really looking at how maybe your private or personal values and organizational values, and I know this is a big massive elephant to chunk down,
Yeah.
but could you talk a little bit about your personal value and how they shape perhaps your own world and also your organization as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe taking one step back before is that you will always everybody has priorities in their lives. The question is, do you actively set them yourselves, or are they being set for you?
Mm.
So I think we all have a choice whether we just go with the flow and see where external priorities take us and just be in a negative way driven by that, or try to set our own priorities. And it's easy also to set priorities for yourself that are disconnected from your values. So you can say, hey, I want to have a huge career in corporate, reach a certain career level, kind of where I was at the start of my career, to define myself by a certain career level in a corporate world, and wanting to achieve that in a certain period of time, achieving a certain salary level, and then ultimately realizing that's not really a core value for me at all. Like, that's not how I grew up. That's not what I mean, it's nice. I still think a certain career level, a certain salary has a lot of advantages, also for your private life, but it's not necessarily what was driving me at the time that was connected to my values now. So understanding your own values and deriving a north star kind of for yourself, whether you say, where do you want to go, and then following that will make setting the right priorities a lot easier. But kind of like setting a corporate strategy or a company strategy, right? If you define the path before knowing the target, first of all, every path can be right, but you don't know where you're going. And if you take this prioritization thing really seriously and you combine it with a lot of discipline, you can go a long way. You just want to make sure it's the direction you want to go in. Otherwise, it can take you really off path. So,
It's I like the example as well that you gave from your corporate career, and I also think our backgrounds are very similar, not in the sense or our way of thinking. When I was younger, it was exactly the same, right? When I left Eastern Europe, it was like, oh, this shiny vest, there is a lot of money, a lot of potential. How can I quickly grow through the ranks, get as much salary as I can, sometimes sacrifice some relationships? And I was actually thinking about it the other day, and I was very sad that on the fact that I actually broke some of my own personal values that I grew up with, but at
yeah.
the same time I was very proud that I accomplished things maybe faster than people around me. And I think you're absolutely right, because we tend to always balance between the personal and the business. And if you don't have a goal where you want to go, and sometimes it doesn't have to be. I was listening the other day to the interview of the CEO of Nvidia, and he said, people think we have a long-term strategy. We don't. And I was so shocked, because everybody's like, you should have a massive vision, and this is like, we are in a now and we do this and then that happen. And I think it can only work if you have very strong values, if you know what, isn't it?
I fully agree. I think that's the way you rephrased it now. Also makes me shake my head a little bit. I'm not sure I fully get it, right? As in, maybe how it makes sense to me is you don't necessarily need a big strategy in writing, but you need a set of values that make sure you are going the right direction. Right? Maybe you don't know the exact number that you want to hit. Maybe you don't know exactly 3 degrees left or 3 degrees right, but you have an idea that how you do things and where you don't want to compromise, that'll take you the right way. Um, and yeah, I think for people are a little bit different also when it comes to how can they make these things actionable. I think some people are very driven by specific pictures that they need to have in their mind. They need to have this vision, like literally speaking, a vision of them being somewhere in a certain surrounding. And I think those can be very powerful. Where for me personally, it's not really the way I work, the way I click. For me, it's more, okay, I need a list of things that are important to me because that is my core target where I want to go ultimately. And these kind of check that checklist, then I can use my priorities and kind of check, does that go with my values? Is that in line? Is that the right list in order of things? And then it's all about following through, right? And just making it happen. And just, I know, is said a lot more simply than done. And this whole, I remember us chatting about this a little bit, this whole thing, like many other things, the concept of priorities, once you start, like you go to school, you do a business degree, and then people immediately, like first semester, it's like, okay, you need to set priorities, you need to make a plan, you blah, 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 blah. You learned it in school. And it's such a simple, deceptively simple concept, yet it's so hard to implement it in daily life and really follow through. And once you hit the switch, though, it just really gets easier.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you're touching on so many interesting topics. I'm getting goosebumps. It's really good. That's exactly what I wanted to get to, and I hope our listeners gonna see it and enjoy it as well as much as we do. And if not, then we are enjoying. But I really like the topic.
Having a good time.
Exactly. I really like the topic you touched upon, and I actually wanted to kind of navigate towards something that I have as well in my mind. If you talk about education, right, and some of the things and connecting that to maybe what we do in the future, at least that's how I would interpret a little bit where you were hinting at. And maybe can you give little example from your private life or even career where you saw this type of, because why I want to ask this is that often I feel in our society there is this disconnection between what we do and what we want to do in the future, and finding that for it's super hard, right? And then obviously you get into the organization like you, super successful as a company and with your team, and you still balancing all the time the heritage that you brought with you. So anyways, if you can maybe talk about some of the values and that helped you in your career as well.
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's super important to say for yourself at the very beginning, what and who is the most important thing in my life. And I think for me it was really decisive to make it clear in my head and admit to myself that I am the most important person to me in my life. And just saying that sounds so wrong. It sounds so egoistic and it sounds so different to everything that I learned when I was a kid, that how I was supposed to behave. But I ultimately found out if I don't put myself first, I cannot be the person, the father, the partner, the manager that I want to be. So that was for me the starting point to say, okay, if I am first and my own happiness is first in my life, it's not about being an altruist. For me personally, everybody I think needs to answer that for themselves. For me, life is not about being an altruistic person that only lives for others. That doesn't, to me, that does not mean I don't want to be of service. It also does not mean I always put my own emotions first or I always put my own values first. It just means in the long run, I need to do what makes me happy, because only then I am able to share my happiness and make other people happier, especially looking at values, the people that I care about that are valuable to me. And then it's um, this nice circle, right? You do something good for yourself so you can do better for others, so they can do better for you, so you can do better for yourself. And it really, it all helps each other. And that makes it so powerful. Same with kind of values and priorities, right? You set your own values, then you define priorities, then you live up to it, and then you kind of learn how that fuels your values and which ones are really strong for you. You get more clarity and you can be better at priority setting. It's also the same, right? There's an interdependency. And if you also here, if you don't do this actively, and for me personally, work was always a perfect example. I put so much effort and so much focus on work. I still do now, just do it much more consciously than I used to. And I had so many situations where it was like, no, I cannot meet this friend right now because I have to do this for work. No, I cannot go work out in the gym right now because I need to do this for work. No, I cannot eat anything healthy right now because I need to finish this for work. And it was because I really felt it had to be that way. Like it exactly sounded like that in my own
It was your value.
It was my priority, but I
Yep.
didn't realize it, right? Like it was disconnected to a certain degree from my value. Still, my value is being a hard worker, having a hard work ethic. That's so, again, it's so instilled in me. It's one of my strongest values, and it really makes us proud, right? To work hard, to show results, to see other people around us work hard, whether they fail or not. Just putting in the effort makes me super proud of other people and also of myself. So that was one of my values. But then changing that to, okay, I want to make this a priority, and asking myself, do I really want to make this a priority now? Yes or no? Whether you change your behavior or not, making it a priority actively changes so many things. And then, of course, connected to that, the way you talk to yourself, and all these psychological and mental things that people know so much about now, how that affects your own happiness and your mental well-being. I mean, this touches on so many things and so many topics. It's just super, super exciting stuff, and learning more about that, and also understanding more about yourself makes it so interesting to develop and to grow.
Mm,
Also to see how far you can grow.
mm,
It's
mm.
cool to explore.
Yeah. Yeah, more you talk, more I feel like we have so similar. Like that also just spins my mind because you talk a lot about this, relationship with yourself and to yourself. And I feel that's a little bit neglected in a Western society. At least that's how I've, grew also in Eastern Europe, how I grew up. Work hard, work hard, show dedication, show results. In the winter on a farm, in the morning, waking up super early, take care of the cattle. And regardless of what it was, I took this, directly to when I moved to the West, and I'm like, they even justify that everybody should do it, and then you kind of slide right in until you realize, like, well, it's maybe not so healthy to do it, and the challenges. I don't know. Maybe we will talk about in another kind of part of this discussion about energy management as
Mhm.
well. But before we get to it, because you already hinted at that, uh, could you give maybe just one example where you saw, and you already said a little bit hinting about how healthy you're eating and prioritizing the projects, wi- example of where you felt that you, with your values, you maybe avoided really a potential trap where usually people actually fall into it and you're like, I've seen that. Or even maybe a trap where you actually didn't avoid and made a mistake. You already mentioned a few things, but I'm just curious because I feel maybe that's very similar to me.
I think that one's really important to underline. I made so many mistakes, and I partly still am so bad at this, right?
We all are. That's the beauty.
At least I'm starting to learn a little bit more about it and about myself, right? And just very recently understood the power of prioritization, like fully, like the concept fully unfolding to myself just happened a few years ago. Now I'm 37 years old and was like, oh well, it took me 35 years to understand that I can actually decide where I want to put my effort. Like it's it's so, again, it's so simple. Yet for me it was always so hard, and I think it is for quite a few people. So coming back to your example, I, uh, it all, like the biggest one for me was really the move from corporate to a different work environment, and the main driver there was totally outside of work. Like I love my job there, my all the different roles. I had so many talented people around me. Obviously, now I know and work for a smaller company. Pitfalls of a corporate world. Maybe I'm not sure how well I would navigate in this environment anymore if I were ever to go back. But at the time, I felt super happy there. Could learn a ton. Was given developmental opportunities. Had great mentorship. So things were going really well from my perspective. I also had some big disappointments job wise where I really failed on the content side, which was also healthy for my development. So I think overall things were going well. And then I realized, okay, the last 2 years of my 11 years stint with that company, they asked me to move to show development also in a different geographical environment. And they also had a very strong requirement regarding global flexibility, being able to move senior management around the world wherever they were needed was very, very relevant in that organization. And I felt, okay, the last 2 years of my career there, I moved to a different location. So I only saw my girlfriend, my partner, on the weekends. I was traveling almost all the time, being in the office maybe 1.5 days a week. And that was long before Corona. So it was just really having a global sales job. And it was so much fun. It was such a big learning opportunity. And it felt really good until I realized, wow, I'm really sacrificing a lot. So I was late 20s at the time, and it was clear for us that we wanted to have a family, we wanted to have kids. My wife also has a corporate career, much more successful than me. So we also wanted to balance that in a good way. And I ended up saying, okay, I will not continue to work in an environment where they expect me to um, unroot my family, to move around, to prioritize my career and the company's requirements ultimately. So, where they need a manager with my skills, I did not want to be that the priority defining my life and where I live with my family. So that's what made me go to a small company where at the I didn't give up on my like business ideas, right? So I still wanted a challenging job where I could grow, where I could create something. So it was a great opportunity work-wise also. I'm not saying like I just gave up on work and I just followed my private interest, but I made my, having a family-friendly environment at work, I made that the priority. And because that was not possible with further growth, at least based on my understanding and my view of things at the time, that's why I left. And so it was super scary. It felt like at first it felt like I threw 11 years of investment into a corporate career almost away. It felt like, okay, the opportunities for growth, for salary, for accountability, that'll all be gone. Um, but that was 8 years ago, and I don't regret a thing. It was such a good decision, and I still sometimes miss parts of it,
Hmm.
especially the good food and all the international people that I had the pleasure to work with at the time, which was so much fun. But ultimately, it aligns so much better with my values, and that I made this a priority at the time. I'm still super proud I did that because it was not an easy decision, and I just, being honest to myself, I could feel that this is not aligning with my values
Hmm.
at the time. So
Yeah, it's a brilliant example, and I'm thinking you're exactly like me. You're beating yourself up. Not anymore, but I think you were exactly at that time. I could totally see what was going through your head, thinking, "Oh man, I have this big corporate career, and I fly around the world. It's all paid, and the career ladder is endless." But then at the same time, you have this little island over here where you're growing more together with your partner, and you're planning more serious step. But that all international life will obviously be not possible probably with that intensity. And being the guy you are, I can imagine, and just like you described, you just want to put 100%, if not 150 into it, right? And then it's
definitely,
not possible to spread yourself thin. So I think you can really pat yourself on the shoulder, because I know even now with your, with Meine Markenmode, you guys are like doing great and you're constantly challenging yourself. But it's, I guess, providing also the balance that you need now with having family and having more long-term oriented plans.
yeah,
So
exactly. For me, a key was really with that North Star that I mentioned earlier. I was lucky enough to have a training during my career in corporate where they really challenged us to reevaluate our values and think about it, and also have a catchphrase, something that you want to achieve in your life that I always found incredibly difficult to say. But I realized more and more what I jotted down 12 years ago, I think it was, and it felt almost a little bit ridiculous, helped me to make those decisions and be at least going to the right direction, and not, as you said earlier, compromising with my values accidentally, because I don't even know if this is making it harder to reach my ultimate goal, yes or no. So And that's totally, it is a totally personal, private goal, related to being, the best granddad in the world. And everything needs to fall into place to make that happen, right? The way I see a great grandfather, the way that I was lucky to have a great grandmother, especially. And I see my mom being a great grandmother, and our, like my, not step parents, my, parents-in-law being great grandparents. It's priceless. And I mean, for that to happen, first of all, you need to have kids. So that was an easy one. But also, you need ideally, you need to have kids that like you. If they don't like you,
Mm.
it's not very likely that you'll be a great grandparent. But also for me personally, I want to be kind of a role model for my grandchildren.
Mhm.
Okay, this is grandpa. He's not a frail old man that cannot move. So exercise, staying healthy came into play. Also, this is not them saying this is grandpa who has no friends, who has no money, and who has never left his small apartment. So those are all things that I thought that's not the best grandfather that I would have imagined
Mm.
for myself, or that I looked up to. So
Mm.
all these things really help me in one very simple core piece to derive values around that. Also try to understand myself a little better, because obviously you don't set all those values for yourself. Some of those were just instilled into you, right? I bet you sometimes, wish you wouldn't beat yourself up as much about not giving something your everything, or like being so hard on yourself all the time. It takes you places, and it's
Yeah.
a great superpower, but it would be nice to switch it off every once in a while, right?
Yeah. And I mean, to be really honest, that's why I like talking to you and people your caliber who remind me, hey, you have time. Gary Vaynerchuk, I have it even on my phone now, where every week it reminds me, and I just put a reminder, you have time, and it, funny enough, shows up at a time where I need it, when
Nice.
I'm like rushing and I'm like, I have to get this done, and that's the agenda, and that's why I put it at the start of the week, because I know it reminds me and it sets the tone for the week for me to know, okay, I have time, man. If I don't get it done this week, and it doesn't mean I should be lazy, but it's more this, like you said, this whip that you all constantly use to think, oh, if I do that, I'll be better. It's all this ego feeding monster. At the same time, I think ego is good because it gets you places, like you said. It makes you to realize, okay, life is not just about work, it's also about other things. But it can be a dangerous, like fire, right? It's a good servant, but it can be a dangerous master. And I think we
Yeah.
just need to remind ourselves. So you serve, and I have to say thank you, really, because of you, I'm standing now for this recording, right? And I have a standing desk since, I think, 2 years, and I used it really sparingly because of you. When you were always, I have treadmill a little bit, and then you walk, and then you stand. Usually, when we call, you stand. So there are things that I think, if like you beginning of the discussion, if you think about fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and for many people this might be totally new terms, right? Fixed a little bit, okay, I have my set of beliefs and I basically acknowledge them and I never change them. And growth mindset is more, okay, how can I optimize it? What worked for me doesn't work for me anymore, and I need to optimize that to get where I'm going. So I want to thank you for that as well, that you're this type of person. Just to go back a little bit, and I think looking also at how much I actually plan for us to discuss today, I think we will have to split this, if that would be okay with you and for our listeners as well. But I want to dive a little bit into that energy management, time management versus energy management. You already hinted at the first part of this discussion about your career and priorities and values, and some of the things that you already said about working out and things. So I wonder, really looking at understanding a little bit more your personal energy and the different cycles. You already kind of hinted at through the corporate, how you were switching from more towards family life, but could you give maybe example of how do you manage energy in your own private life, and how do you use that to be productive and maybe private life, but also in your line of work, corporate?
Yeah, sure. I think there are, quite a few different angles that you could look at this. I think first of all, there's your overall energy potential, so to speak. Like how much can you actually charge? What's the capacity of your battery? And I think I really worked a lot on expanding my battery in the last few years. So for me, that means being healthier, um, having better sleep, also prioritizing sleep to a certain degree, um, putting or investing time with activities that give me energy rather than cost energy, like prioritize reading over watching TV, for example. Um, and this is for me, this has really helped to expand my battery capacity. Not drinking alcohol anymore, for example, also was a big one just a few months ago that I felt gives me just overall more capacity. Maybe that's for this one, alcohol is a bad example. Maybe it just drains some of your energy and does not affect the capacity, but it feels like overall you can work on your capacity. I think that one is really huge. So how much energy can you give yourself that you can actually invest? And then for me, looking at energy cycle, I think on a daily basis, you actually short term you can create a lot of energy. You can actually recharge your battery while you're at it. And that one takes a lot of experience for me, and you need to have experienced it to actually believe it. I know, you know, as many people know, you get home from work, you're tired, you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to work out, whatever. Whether that, I think that's a typical example for many people. But
Yeah.
a lot of people know once you're back from the gym, you will have more energy than before. Like it does not take from your energy, so you can actually create energy by doing that. And there are so many times where I know, okay, I have a late nighter coming up where I need to get some work done. Yet I still do a quick workout first because it's my priority to stay healthy, and it actually it recharges my energy to a certain degree. So I think for me, the routine, the discipline creates a lot of recharging and brings you energy in daily life. So for me, it's really it's also something where we should challenge ourselves. Where sometimes I struggle a little bit personally with understanding. Okay, you need to conserve energy really in the short term, and you need to set more boundaries to protect your energy. I think you can recreate a lot of that. Of course, you need healthy routines for your overall energy, and you cannot just push harder and harder and harder. Eventually, there's a breaking point where it all goes downhill, obviously, but that's really an important one. Now, when it comes to setting priorities and using your natural energy cycle that we all have, that will be different, as I think is now common knowledge that, or at least latest standard of developmental understanding, is we all have, depending on our chronotypes and on our routines, a different state of energy throughout the course of the day. Some of it is very comparable for all humans, others it's depending on your chronotype and so on. Just oversimplifying this a little bit right now. So I think it's also very helpful for your, especially for your work life, to understand when you have the highest energy and then routinely plan your tasks according to your energy, just to be easier on yourself. So I personally know my activity level and my motivation to do conceptual work is so much higher in the morning compared to the afternoon. While I have a partner at home where it's exact opposite. Like my partner will be most creative and most productive regarding concepts and everything around that at night. Where my brain's already switched off, right? Yeah, yes, I can answer some simple emails. Yes, I'll be able to get some work done, but nothing where I need to be creative or uh, do some really cracking some really hard nuts. That will not happen.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to understand your energy cycle throughout the day, to have a routine also that helps you to set your priorities right. And that was one example from the work life, but also on the private life. I know it was always so hard for me to do a run during the winter times at night when it was dark out. I hated running with a flashlight. I hated running in the cold rain at night. And it was always so much easier for me to squeeze in a run at the weekend during the wintertime and midday. I mean, it's like today, it's gray outside, it's cloudy, yet there's light. You don't need the stupid flashlight, you don't need the reflectors. So for me, knowing that, scheduling my run also for lunch break, for example, during the course of the week, made it so much easier to stick to my workout routine. And
Mm.
just understanding also these like little hacks. Okay, where's the, I'm not sure if it was even energy related or just personal preferences, but
Yeah.
also that helped me set a priority to say, okay, if I schedule my workout routine early enough and I make it a priority in my calendar to stick to it, I can actually move it around quite flexibly to a
Mm.
certain degree. Whereas if the last thing I want to think about is when do I do my workout tomorrow, and my schedule is already overflowing, yeah, then of course it's hard to fit it in, right? So
Mm.
that's also part of setting priorities for myself, somehow connected to energy levels. But again, I don't. It's a fine line of saying, okay, manage your energy carefully, but also understanding you can get a lot more things done than you think, and there's a lot more gas in your tank than you would believe. Obviously, you don't want to go into the red all the time, and obviously, you need to make sure you recharge. But wow, if I and we talked about hard work earlier. I mean, we think we work hard at times, yet we also know what other people's hard work looks like, whether it's physical hard work, whether it's business hard work. Like there's always people that you see that, well, that like compared to them, I'm not even working at all. Like, we're just playing around.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
also nice to put that in perspective at times, and also I think it humbles yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Thank you for taking a little bit broader brush and perspective on this, because I think you hinted a little bit at a workout and taking more self care, and it also aligns with the initial part of the discussion we had about values. I really like it because it also shows thinking about, okay, I have to take care of myself first. Hence, when do I schedule my workout? When do I schedule my breaks? And then when do I have to bring the kids to the kindergarten? Or, when is my partner doing it? Like you said, following the cycles. I'm productive in the morning. She's productive in the evening. How do we fit it? Can we have some together time, etc., etc.? And all of these things kind of fit in between. But I've really liked that because I think in a similar way. I'm probably a little bit more like a partner. I could program myself, and I still do now actually, because of another friend of mine who wakes up super early. I'm like, I have to wake up at least once a week, twice a week at like 5. I got to do this because then I can dedicate things to all my time to things that I really care about. But at the same time, you're balancing and knowing from a past where I used to do it and slept only a few hours and was sick all the time, where I was just in a red zone, like you described it. And I think I also like myself way more when I'm just sleeping enough, at least 6-7 hours, ideally more, and then I'm like in a nice place. So I like how you describe it, because I think that's a very familiar territory for many of people. And I spoke to a friend, and she struggles exactly with this because she joined a startup, and then she needs to now wake up too early, and comes home at 7, don't have kids. But we were talking about working out, and that's why now I program it with my partner. We program it so that we start around 6-7 in the morning with a workout every day, for at least 4 times, 5 times a week. And
Right.
then that it's scheduled in, nothing moves around it. Even if I travel, like I had last week or this week, pretty busy, I just woke up at 5 and then just get my workout in, or even earlier. And
Right.
I'm tired. I'm more tired in the evening, right? And I know that I will be more susceptible to irritation, and then I need to watch out, and I need to be more patient. I'm like, don't get angry at people. Don't get angry at people.
And it's funny how you describe it. Also, like the role that external factors play in your life. Like the different one of the differences between us is you not having kids, me having kids.
Yeah.
For me, it was so frustrating at first to have something in life that is not plannable, and that if you make it a priority, will make timing decisions, especially for you. So there was also a time in my life when I continuously woke up at 5 in the morning and did a yoga session. And I actually felt that it was really good for myself. Once our daughter shifted her sleeping pattern, and every other day My wife brought my daughter to me at like 5:23 because she had just woken up. I got so frustrated with this because I could not follow the routine anymore, and there all of a sudden there was an external thing, and all parents will know that, right? It's just natural. So I had to shift my whole behavior to say, well, like, how do I set priorities with this now? Like, now it was less about having a strict routine because that didn't work anymore, not like it used to, but still making it a priority and being flexible around it. And that was it was and still is so hard for me many times to make sure I schedule a workout very pragmatically. I schedule a workout for me in the morning, but then things take longer. Kid is sick, kids at home. You need to take care of it. Like when? How do you get your workout in? The past, it was like being frustrated, ditch your workout, take care of the kids, take care of work, be tired at night, and see what happens next day. Now it's like, okay, my priority is to get my workout in. How can I get it in? Like, what's happening when she's doing her nap? What's happening between meetings? What's happening if she's climbing around your back while you're doing push-ups? Whatever, just small things. But if you say workout is a priority for me, and you really are disciplined with it, you will find a way. You will not always do the same thing. You will not be able to always stick to the same routine, but you will be able to do something, and you will be able to follow that priority. And then what I love so much about the ideas that you follow and that you brought into my life is the way of the turtle, as you always say, is, hey, it's all about keeping going.
Oh, yeah,
Whether it's slow steps, small steps, if you keep going, you will go a long way. And sometimes it's baby turtle steps, sometimes it's larger turtle steps, but um, yeah, these things are so interconnected. I move a lot from left to right, and I thank you for bringing things back a little bit to the initial talking points, because for me, this is like when we talked about it before, setting priorities. It's such a potentially small thing, but for me, it's really everything now.
yeah. I mean, thank you for another perspective. It's with the kids. It's obviously something that's why I also like talking to you, because I feel, with my partner we're heading in that direction, and I know that a lot of that scheduling and determination and stuff will have to be a little bit different, and hence when I'm looking at my projects, and I know we were talking about it, and you're always like, "Ah, it's so cool that you have so many things going and on," and I'm like, now I'm actually trying to cram it all like to here, because I'm already trying to mentally prepare myself for there will be a bigger focus on something that really matters, and these things matter too, right? Career progress equals happiness, as Tony Robbins says, or many other leaders. But it is also about just being, I guess, realistic. And that's for me, I realize as well now with my career and older I get, that it is nice to strive, but with this notion of having time, the way of the turtle, making sure that you actually know that you just never stop. You keep going, even like you said, there is a day where I don't feel well and I don't do crazy workout because I know it's not healthy for me, because I might get sick. But I know I'm getting it in for just the mental, a couple push-ups, right? Like I had a super busy day. I'm like, okay, where's my tear band? And I just do some couple of, 5 minutes for my arms. And I'm like, I got it in. That's it. But that stimulus might be enough. I just, you touch upon some topic. I'm just looking because we will slowly have to round off. Accountability a little bit. Could you talk about the energy and together, how, what does accountability mean for you? And that's a little question that actually I didn't have planned, but now you kind of touched upon it, and I'm curious, how do you see it going together with the energy, and how can that shift as well for you to be more successful in your own life and perhaps even corporate?
I truly believe all of us are accountable for what we do, where we set our priorities, and where we want to go.
Hmm.
I don't think we are accountable necessarily fully of where we actually end up. So I think I'm not one of those that says whatever you dream, you can make it happen, but whatever you want to do, you can do that. And whether the outcome is exactly as planned, I don't know.
Mm.
For me, being accountable is also a huge decisive factor for happiness. So not being a victim of your circumstances, but taking ownership, accountability for the way you behave, the way you think, the way you take things, I think can get you such a long way. And when you said earlier, you're trying to cramp down things, you're trying to think with a certain perspective. I was thinking, man, you are in a position now, and actually I am too, where you could do so many incredible things. Like you could be a pro athlete if you wanted to. Not saying in every sport, but you could be a pro athlete now. You could be a CEO of a corporate company if you really put everything into it. I truly believe that. You could found your own company and make that a, I don't know, Fortune 500 company. I really truly believe that this could happen almost any time. Definitely now, where you probably have 70 good years ahead of you. But do you want that?
I
Like,
was waiting for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you
Do you want it? Yeah.
what do you want? Right. But and it's like I mean, you talked about the NVIDIA CEO, and one of the things that I found striking was when he was asked, okay, what would you do different founding NVIDIA or a similar company going forward? And his answer, I think, more or less was, I would never do this again.
Okay.
I wouldn't do it again. Like if I would have known in advance how hard it was,
Hmm.
I would not have done it again. So now he's in this place where, like, is he really happy? Probably. I mean, just because he would not have done it again doesn't necessarily mean he's not happy where he is right now. But it's, as I said before, like discipline and priority setting can get you a very long way. Make sure the direction is where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I again, I'm getting a little goosebumps here because I think it's so. I always talk about it. Internalization, knowing something, and compared to being able to internalize it are two different things. And for a long time, I've been very good at knowing a lot of stuff. Now, in this part of my life, heading towards my 40s, being in a similar age group like you, I'm trying to internalize a lot of this stuff and being able to ask myself and look myself in the mirror honestly and say, you could be anything. And knowing, I just was telling it to a friend of mine. I'm like, I'm looking at my career and things I've done, and I'm good at a lot of things. And but the question is now, what direction do I want to go? And that's the hard part. And that's exactly where I was less focused on. I was more focused in my earlier career. Let's get lost. Let's try stuff, because then I will be bold enough and not afraid to try new things. Whereas now I'm like, okay, where's the direction I want to go? And what are the values? And that's why, again, going back to you, it's with the kids and stuff, I became way more self-conscious with this building a startup, hiring people, having a huge team. It's a lot of stress. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, and it means that I still aspire maybe something like that with my projects. But is it really what you want, or is it more important for me to have these type of quality discussions with people, where if I am a high level CEO of a huge corporate, I probably don't have time for that. It's all the time numbers, it's all the time performance, strategy, go to market, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's very. I like how you brought it back home, because it's really very easy to get enthusiastic, and I'm the type of person, I can get a lot of stuff from A to Z and get it done. And I'm like, it's exactly like you said, it's not the outcome I expected. I'm like, hey, that's it. I thought that would be like a little bit different. And then and I'm like, come on, man. I put I woke up early, I followed the guidebook, I did all of that, but that's what I got in return, really. So yeah.
Yeah, and also here I think we need to underline that, at least for me, a lot of insecurity around identifying your values, your true values,
Yeah.
the North Star that that I talked about earlier. And for me, there's a lot of doubts. Like, okay, you want to be the best grandfather in the world. Like that, is this really it? Like, does it boil down to that? Is like, will you be on your deathbed eventually and say, I made it? Like, I have grandkids and they love me, and that's all I ever wanted. With all that, again, it's very complex, and there's a lot of things that I personally tie to that picture. But I have a lot of doubt. As I mentioned earlier, when I took that big job decision at the time, I had so many doubts, and I questioned myself. I questioned the decision so many times, and to a certain degree, I still do a little bit, not nearly as much as I did in the past. But I think that's also important. It's not done by saying just define your values, just define your North Star, and then the priorities can follow, and then you just need some discipline to follow through. I mean, that's not how it works, right? And you know, you can
That's
be
how
very,
people think it works. That's the problem, I feel. And I think, or maybe not everybody, but at least that's how I thought that's how it was. And then there are so many nuances in between
yeah,
that you discover as you get older. And I guess you get more patient with yourself. You get less self-hating and more open to criticism, receiving feedback, realizing, hey, when people tell you something, it doesn't say anything about you. They actually want to help you. They are not there to get you or, show you that. I mean, those who want to do it, those are not our friends, but
yeah,
or we use them to motivate ourselves to be even better, whatever serves the purpose. But I,
right.
I, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So mechanically, I think that's exactly how it works. Also, as you said before, right, you can learn the mechanics to do it that way, but understanding yourself, whether also again going back to the very beginning of our discussion, is your own happiness your biggest target in life?
Mm,
It's very fair to say, no, my biggest target in life is to be of the best service I can, whether I'm happy with that or not, doesn't matter.
yeah.
Or it's about, okay, I want to, for whatever reason, I want to make as much money as possible as a heritage for my family, whatever. Like what, but for me, I believe I want to be happy, and that matches my values very well. And I hope a lot of the things that make me happy actually have a greater purpose as well, and are
Mm,
not as egoistic as it might sound at the very beginning when you first say, okay, my own happiness is most important to me. But yeah, I guess that's kind of what it boils down to.
yeah. 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 Thank you, Timo. I mean, it's very eye-opening. I think because again, I my colleague actually the other day, or ex-colleague, he said, I'm a big capitalist. I'm like, me too, man. Me too.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what you said. I think the life is multicolored, and it's not just that once but you need the kind of layers underneath your values, your self worth, your family, your finances. All it has to match. And when you have, especially, I think the focus, like you said, being the best granddad, that can mean different things to different people, right? It can be I am taking kids to Montana and every year and I pay for everybody vacation, whatever. Or it's just a simple thing like I'm actually present with my grandkids, right? And that can be enough.
exactly. Yeah,
But I think just having the mindset of you want money because for whatever reason, I think there's nothing wrong with it. Just like you said, and I think in that sense we are totally aligned. I also want to make a difference, right? And I realized, coming from a more, humble family where we kind of struggled and had to kind of have our own, animals and stuff to feed ourselves, and just the town where I was growing up was just depressed, and usually people didn't have money there. And having the lifestyle I built now compared to that, it's just very eye-opening that you realize it's actually cool that we can do it. But then the second part of the equation is how can I use it to make the world a better place, exactly like you said. And
now
that's exciting because then a lot of these discussions hopefully fuel more discussions for people when they listen to it. And they're like, yeah, it's cool to be successful, but the journey is just, it's hard to describe it for people because then it comes too dry, like do this, do that, and that will happen, but in between there is so much variety.
and I like it's so nice that you say that, because the where I stand right now, saying prioritization is ultra important for me in my life. Like 2 years ago, I did not realize that, and I really, it's not because I didn't know about it. It's not because nobody told me about it. It's just because it didn't click. And I
Mm,
also, I don't know what exactly made it click. I think it was a little bit more self-evaluation, trying to grow, and seeking more advice and insights. And maybe that brought that whole picture or puzzle closer together. but it's interesting how it works, right? It's not like, I don't think a lot of things that we talked about today will not be new to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The question is, does it make you click?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's absolutely right. I think it's always what I say: common knowledge is not common practice, and this is,
Nicely said.
exactly how I am. Yeah, you can listen to the same thing 3 times, and it's sometimes my habit as well, listening to podcasts multiple times. That I'm like, interesting, I heard that, and then I'm in a different setting, and I'm more, open after a workout, and then you can kind of take it really all in and ponder a little bit more. So Timo, I want to thank you. Really, it was such a joyful ride with you, and I hope you will be open to do a part two in for the setting. I think there are so many things to talk about, priorities from different kind of levels, and I really enjoyed learning about you as well a little bit more, and understanding that it's a journey for all of us, and you just should be prioritizing yourself, but using that as a fuel to maybe make the world or people around you better. Like for you, I love it, being the best granddad. That's a hell of a vision, and I like it because that's something what probably people, and I guess because I don't have kids, and I always say it, I will come to you for advice when I do. So now I understand, I think, how you describe it in your level of priorities, start of the career compared to the where you're at now. So it's really cool. It just makes me also rethink my own stuff. So are there any parting thoughts, anything you wanna, give away for people to think about before we wrap it up?
I think we touched on all the most important thoughts that I had or have around this topic. I would really also like to thank you for all the passion and all the work that you invest into these projects. I know you are of great service to a lot of people. As I like to tell everyone, you're the best networker in the world, anyways. So that one's clear. But also really the passion, the preparation that you put into all these things. It's so lovely to see how many things you can move, and how you use your own values and your priorities to make sure you stay on track where you want to go. It's cool.
Yeah, thank you, Timo. Thank you. Appreciate your kind words. I was also thinking for maybe people who want to connect with you, I'll just put there your LinkedIn account
Sweet.
for people. If you want to connect with Timo, you can just scan the QR code, and if not, then I'll just put a link in the show notes for you. Timo, thank you very much. I really enjoy it. I have been enjoying your presence for a long time, and I'm looking forward till we meet again in person, and also exciting to think about the projects we might have in store for people to work on some stuff together. I really admire you as a caliber of person. It's really cool. So guys, please connect with Timo. Great human being, and as well, as Timo said, sometimes it might not click, but re-listen to it, or maybe you get some hints as well next time when we continue. So Timo, thank you very much for your time, and until the next time, stay awesome.
Thanks, Matteo.